I call to order the Wednesday, February 17th, 2021 meeting of the Morris Township Committee. Adequate notice has been provided, both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied, and a statement certifying such will be executed. Will everybody rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Grayzel, you may want to.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Gyorfy.
Here.
Mr. Mancuso.
Here.
Mr. Ravitz.
Present.
Mrs. Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Grayzel.
Here.
Thank you.
First order of business is approval of minutes from January 20th, 2021, regular and closed. Will somebody move that?
Would they be accepted as circulated, Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The first order of business on tonight's meeting is a proclamation in honor of Black History Month. January is African American or Black History Month, and Committeewoman Cathy Wilson wrote a beautiful tribute that I would like to ask her to read aloud, if you could. Committeewoman
Sure.
Wilson.
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Mayor. This is our Black History Month proclamation. Whereas Black History Month is a time to commemorate the historic struggles of African Americans to gain freedom and equality, to recognize the importance of these struggles to our country's history and ideals, and to celebrate the many achievements African Americans have made to our cultural, economic, spiritual, and political development as a nation. And whereas in 1915, Dr. Carter Goodwin Woodson, noted Black scholar and son of former slaves, founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. In 1926, Dr. Woodson initiated Black History Week, a celebration which for many years took place during the second week in February, chosen to coincide with the birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. And whereas in 1976, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History expanded this occasion to Black History Month, an event which has been celebrated nationally in February ever since. Whereas the month of February holds great significance due to the many milestones it contains, including on February 14th, 1817, Frederick Douglass, noted writer and orator who had escaped slavery, was born. On February 1st, 1865, the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, was adopted. On February 23rd, 1868, the civil rights leader and co-founder of the NAACP, W.E.B. Du Bois, was born. On February 3rd, 1870, the 15th Amendment granting Black men the right to vote was passed. On February 12th, 1909, the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birthday, the NAACP was founded in New York City. On February 4th, 1913, Rosa Parks, who refused to give up her bus seat to a white man, was born. On February 1st, 1960, a civil rights movement milestone occurred when a group of college students began a sit-in at a segregated Woolworth's lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. On February 10th, 1964, the US House of Representatives passed the Civil Rights Act. Whereas these events, and among many others, as well as the lives and contributions of such accomplished and visionary leaders as Thurgood Marshall, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Maya Angelou, James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, Harriet Tubman, John Lewis, and Barack Obama, among many others, illustrate and symbolize why we celebrate Black History Month And whereas in 1986, President Ronald Reagan declared, this is a quote, "Black history is a book rich with the American experience, but with many pages yet unexplored. The observance of Black History Month serves to focus national attention on an endeavor of awareness that should follow us throughout the year. The foremost purpose of Black History Month is to make all Americans aware of the struggle for freedom and equality, as well as to celebrate the many achievements of African Americans in every field, from science and the arts to politics and religion. Whereas the observance of Black History Month calls our nation's attention to the ongoing need to enhance our understanding of Black history, to overcome racism, to acknowledge and address systemic barriers that obstruct equal opportunity for all, and to build a society that lives up to our founding ideals. Now, therefore, be it resolved that in this spirit, the Morris Township Committee supports this February 2021 celebration of Black History Month and encourages our residents of all ages to observe this occasion through activities based in thoughtful, open-minded inquiry and reverence, as well as sincere efforts to create a world that is more just, peaceful, and prosperous for all.
Thank you, Committeewoman Wilson. It's a very, very nice document that you prepared. I don't know if people can see on my screen, but it's a wonderful proclamation that we will share with the community. At the beginning of the meeting, I should have taken note that the Township Committee of the Township of Morris meetings are conducted in person with social distancing requirements being observed and with remote Zoom meeting and telephone call-in options from offsite locations due to the ongoing state of public health emergency pursuant to the New Jersey Governor's executive orders, COVID-19, public health concerns, and social distancing requirements. So here in the room tonight is just myself, Deputy Mayor Gyorfy, and our technician, Mark Daly. Everybody else is remote tonight, as well as obviously the members of the public. Wanted to mention that. Next, we're going to continue our tradition of honoring members of the community. We like to shine a light on the good things people do for others. And tonight I am very, very pleased to honor 5 people in our community. They are members of the Martin Luther King Observance Committee. And I'd like to read a little bit of background about their accomplishments. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee was organized in 1970 under the leadership of Dr. Felicia Jameson to recognize the contributions of Martin Luther King Jr. following his assassination on April 4th, 1968, to keep his dream alive. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee founded the Service of Celebration for the Morris area community in 1970. The celebration of service provides an opportunity for the community to express its solidarity with Dr. King's message of compassion, love for peace, racial equality, nonviolent social change, social justice, commitment to reconciliation, and belief in the dignity and worth of all people. And I should mention that they just celebrated their 51st celebration since 1970, this past January. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee actively participated in the changing of the name of Evergreen Avenue to Martin Luther King Avenue in the towns of Morristown and Morris Township. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee founded the annual Morris Interfaith Breakfast in 1986, now in collaboration with the Morris Area Clergy Council and the African American Clergy Association of Morris County, intended to observe an interfaith religious service of faith and hope with the widest spectrum of religious groups. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee financially contributed to making the Martin Luther King Jr. birthday as a national holiday, officially enacted into law in 1983 by President Ronald Reagan. The chair of the Martin Luther King Observance Committee has served as an active member of the Morris Area Clergy Council, and for the 2020 to 2021 year, the committee chair, Dr. David Hollowell, is also serving as the president of the Morris Area Clergy Council, and Dr. Hollowell is with us tonight. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee, as part of its collaboration with the community organizations, has consistently engaged the services of volunteer students of Jack and Jill, a Morris County service organization for young scholars, for King Days, and has offered student tutorials and inspirational lectures on the life and legacy of Dr. King. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee has intentionally included the contributions of talented and committed youth speakers in its services and in its development of program content for the Interfaith Breakfast and the service of commemoration. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee was a founding member of the Washington, D.C. Martin Luther King National Memorial Foundation, which led to the Martin Luther King Jr. Monument that we now have there. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee financially contributed to the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Monument in Washington, D.C., dedicated in August 2011. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee financially contributed to the King Center for Nonviolent Social Change in Atlanta, Georgia. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee financially contributed to the Children's Defense Fund. The committee sponsors high school graduate scholarships. The committee also has sponsored elementary school Martin Luther King essay contests, and it has financially contributed to COVID-19 relief in New Jersey. The Martin Luther King Observance Committee members residing in Morris Township are Dr. Felicia Jameson, Dr. David Hollowell, Dr. Dorothy Hollowell, Eli Sims, and Henry Lee. I am pleased to have all 5 of those residents with us tonight. I am also pleased to have with us Reverend Robert Rogers, the senior pastor of Church of God in Christ for All Saints in Morristown, with us as well. And I would first like to turn to Reverend Rogers, who has known this fine group of people for many, many years, and ask him to say a few words regarding their accomplishments. Do you see Reverend Rogers in the public there? Reverend Rogers.
I am here.
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this meeting tonight and to lend my congratulations and adoration to these 5 persons, these 5 residents of Morris Township, whom I have worked with. They are men and women of faith. They are dedicated to improving the quality of life in the township, in the town, and Morris County. They are dedicated to promoting the teachings of Dr. King. These are our unsung heroes who faithfully work behind the scenes, work without recognition, who give and who sacrifice for the good of others. They are faithful persons and dedicated, committed to serving others in this time and in this season. So I'm truly thankful to have this moment to recognize them and to offer my words of praise and adoration for them because they are really great people. So thank you, Mayor, for this moment. And again, I salute them and the work that they have done and that they will continue to do.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you for those kind words. I'd also like to call on next Dr. David Hollowell and Dr. Dorothy Hollowell. Can you bring them over? They could be by phone. You see Dorothy Hollowell as an attendee there? Hold on, we're trying to bring you over, David and Dorothy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, sir.
Okay. You may not see my picture, but I would like to offer a couple of comments. First of all, I'd like to thank you for that excellent proclamation that was prepared. And it shows some insight and some consideration for the events that have arisen around Black History Month. And for the record, I'd like to indicate that Black History Month, as we have been celebrating it with the Martin Luther King Observance Committee, is not just Black history, but it's American history. And I think that that is the reason we have had an intentional effort in inclusivity in designing and executing our programs that we present on King Day. And for the past 36 years, that effort has been manifested in the fact that most of the major faith communities in Morris County have been a part of this celebration. And we've made it a deliberate effort to not only include these various faith communities in the planning of our programs, but also in participation. And as another measure of our inclusivity initiatives, we have always tried to include young people as well, because as we look to the future of this country, unless we have our young people to kind of internalize the beliefs and the ideals of Dr. King, they won't be able to grow into the kind of mature and moral and responsible citizens that we want them to be. And so for the past 4 years, we have been putting on a scholarship contest to sensitize our young people to the fact that Dr. King gave his life for the principles of freedom and economic justice and equality and opportunity for all people. And I want to thank the members of the committee who have extended themselves in a very selfless way in reaching out to our community. And again, even though you're honoring 5 members of Morris Township, we have 20 members who come from all over the county. And so they are to be congratulated as well. So again, we appreciate this opportunity. We intend to expand our efforts in the years to come. And even though our major event has been a King Day celebration, which involves both an interfaith breakfast and a commemorative noonday service, in our planning over the past couple of months, we've decided that we want to have an increased visibility. So we will be putting on programs throughout the year in order to make sure that we reach out to the total community and have everyone involved. Because in this chaotic time, there's no more identified need for unity and community representation at these times. And so we hope to make sure that everyone is involved, and we want to put on our initiatives in such a way that we bring our community closer together. We're blessed, as you know, to have a community where private sector, public sector, our fraternities and sororities have all cooperated in making sure that this is a harmonious and very profitable community to live in, and we want to keep it that way. So again, we thank you, and we acknowledge your efforts, and congratulations to the mayor and the township committee for the effort that you have put on. We want to just say a special word to Dr. Jameson, even though she has relinquished the chairpersonship of the committee. She's been very active in participating in our planning and reaching out to those who are our sponsors and participants. And we want to just make sure that we commemorate her in a very special way, because without her, the committee will not have been able to do the things that it has been able to do over the years. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you. Does Dorothy want to say anything?
No, she says that I've blabbed enough, so.
Okay, fine. That's a good lead-in for Dr. Jameson. Dr. Holloway, I'd like to say that your words about our harmonious community ring true, and the efforts that all of you on the committee, all 20 of you have put in, have really brought a special type of harmony to our community. So thank you for that. Dr. Felicia Jameson should be on the phone. And if you see a phone number that is 538-5012. Okay. So we'll go to 2651. That's fine. That's Eli Sims. You can pull Eli over. Eli Sims is a member of the Observance Committee. He's also a longtime resident of Morris Township and our former chief of police here in Morris Township. And Eli, are you there? Can you hear me? You have to unmute yourself by hitting, is it *9?
*6.
*6. Eli, can you hit *6 on your phone? No? Okay. We'll try to come back to him. Do you see Henry Lee in the audience? Why don't you bring over Henry Lee?
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Eli.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I'd like to thank the Township Committee for their continued support throughout the years, and for all the committee persons and yourself, and especially the proclamation drafted and read by Cathy Wilson. Thank the Township Committee for their continued support in the future, and we hope that you continue to march with us for equality, justice, peace, and in a nonviolent manner. And now we can add unity to that. So I think I've said enough, because prior to my speaking, I think Dr. Hollowell and others had spoken as to what our organization is about. Thank you.
You know you are a wordsmith.
Thank you, Eli.
Thanks, Eli.
Dr. Hollowell, I think you might need to mute yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Do you see Henry Lee? Can you bring Henry Lee over? Okay, Henry, you're on.
Hello, everybody. Everyone.
Hello. Nice to see you, Henry. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. This Dr. Hollowell, Reverend Rogers, Eli pretty much said it all. And kudos to the committee and committee woman, Cathy Wilson. Wonderful, wonderful declaration. God bless you all. Have a good meeting.
Thank you. And I would going to try something different. It's so important to me to have Dr. Jameson participate in this. I'm going to try to call her on the phone, and hopefully she's going to pick up, because she's the one who started it all.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Dr. Jameson. This is Jeff Grayzel from Morris Township.
Yes, I hear you.
Very good. Can you say a few words to the audience?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me all right?
No, it's not working. Are you on Zoom?
No, I'm just on a regular phone.
You're just on. Okay, try it again.
I want to say that love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. I think it's going to be the answer to our civilization at this present time. These are words from Dr. King. Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. And thank you so very much for the proclamation and for all the honors that's given the committee. God is a good God.
Thank you, Dr. Jameson. It was very important for me to have you on the phone. As I stated earlier, you started this organization 50 years ago, and it's very rare in life, I think, to be alive 50 years later, quite honestly, to see the fruits of one's labor so far into the future. So it's very special that you started the organization 51 years ago, and that it's still it's still in full force today and thriving and a big part of our community. I think you are blessed to be able to see the fruits of that labor 51 years later, and we as a community are blessed to have you as one of us. So thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for all the work of the Martin Luther King Observance Committee. And I would like to show a plaque that we are going to be distributing to each of you. I'll show that on my screen right here. We'll be delivering this certificate of appreciation to each one of you for your service to the community. And we again thank you. I'd also like to add, if anybody in the community has any recommendations for somebody who should be honored in the future, please reach out to one of the members of the Township Committee because we're always looking, as I said, to find the people who do good for others, and there are plenty out there. So please send your recommendations to us, and we look forward to continuing this tradition. So again, thank you to all of our honorees. I'll be knocking on your door over the weekend, and I'll be delivering those plaques to you and saying hello personally. So thanks again to everybody. Okay, we continue our meeting with the first section of public commentary and inquiry. We have two of these sections at our meeting. So we'll have one right now, and then we'll have another one after we do the business of the meeting and hear from our Township Committee members. So if anybody in the audience would like to ask a question or make a statement or any kind of inquiry, please raise your hand. If you are on the phone, you can hit *9 and you will be recognized by Mr. Daly here at Town Hall. Nobody there? Okay, seeing none, will somebody move that we close the public commentary section?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, very good. So now we'll move to our ordinance, public hearing and final consideration. We have 3 ordinances tonight for consideration, although one of them is going to be continued to a special meeting on February 24th. Mr. Carlson, I'll turn it over to you. Ordinance 01-21.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance, the Township of Morris County, adopting the redevelopment plan for 340 Mount Kemble Avenue. As you stated, this is going to be continued to a special meeting on February 24th, that being next Wednesday at 7 p.m. That meeting will be conducted in the same manner that this meeting is being conducted. I would urge any members of the public that are here for that to watch the municipal website for the agenda for next week's meeting and join us at that time.
Very good. We're also going to be sending out a municipal messenger with information regarding the meeting, the login information and such. It's a good time to remind everybody to sign up for the municipal messenger. If you haven't done so already, you can find the municipal messenger by going to our website, morristwp.com, going to the government button at the top, and then there's a selection for municipal messenger where you can input your email address, and you will get notifications such as the special meeting, amongst other things. So if you don't get the municipal messengers, as Mr. Carlson just said, please check the website for the login information. That will be next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Okay, ordinance 02-21.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance appropriating $100,000 available in the General Capital Improvement Fund to provide electric vehicle charging stations at municipal facilities.
Very good. So as we discussed last year, we had put aside money to put in an EV charging station at Streeter Pool and the Streeter Sports Complex. It turns out that we didn't have sufficient money set aside, so we're setting aside a little bit more to complete that project, as well as installing an EV charging station either here or across the street at the police station, so that we can start buying EV cars for our fleet and have a place to charge them. So this ordinance deals with installation of those 2 stations. Will somebody move 02-21?
So moved.
Second? Very good. Now I'll open it up for public commentary. If anybody has an inquiry regarding ordinance 02-21, please raise your hand. Nope. Seeing none, ask that we move to the closed public portion.
So moved.
Thanks. Second? Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel. Thank you.
Yes. I, Jeffrey Grayzel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Mr. Carlson, ordinance 03-21.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 9, Article 9, Section 9-50, Membership, Terms of Office to revise the number of members of the Transportation Advisory Committee from 9 members to 11 members.
Very good. I think the title of that is self-explanatory. There's a lot of work that the Transportation Advisory Committee is undertaking, and we're adding a couple more members so we can try to get more done. Will somebody move ordinance 03-21?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. We'll now open it up for a public inquiry and commentary. Anybody from the public who has a question can raise their hand.
Move we close the public portion, Mr. Mayor.
So moved. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. I, Jeffrey Grayzel, Mayor, declare the ordinance adopted and finally passed, approve the same, and direct that the clerk publish proper notice thereof in the newspaper and to record the ordinance in the proper place. Next, we will move on to ordinances for introduction. Mr. Carlson, ordinance 04-21.
Yes, Mayor, this is an ordinance amending Chapter 88 entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Article, pardon my vision, 11A, Section 88-2A.2 and Schedule 2, handicapped parking spaces.
Very good. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Quinn to give us the background on this.
Thank you, Mayor. This is to remove a handicap parking space in front of number 86 Fairchild Avenue. It was approved by the governing body back in 2019. Just recently, the property was sold. There is now a new homeowner there, and the handicapped parking spot is no longer required for that location.
Very good. And just so the public understands, there is a process by which you can apply to the municipality to have a designated parking spots, handicap parking spots in front of your residence, correct, Mr. Quinn?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Very good. Will somebody move 04-21?
So moved.
Second.
Very good. Since this is just introduction, we'll just have a roll call and we'll have a second hearing at our meeting on March 17th. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. Mr. Carlson, 05-21.
There was one moment, my computer decided to have a mind of its own. Okay. This is an ordinance of the Township of Morris, County of Morris, concerning salaries for non-union personnel.
Very good. And this ordinance has to do with the annual salary raises for our non-union personnel here at Town Hall. The details of which you can find in the body of the ordinance, which is on our website. With that, I'll ask for a roll call.
Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. And again, this ordinance will have a second hearing at our March 17th meeting. Mr. Carlson, 06-21.
Yes, Mayor, this is an ordinance of the Township of Morris, Morris County, New Jersey, concerning salaries for non-union personnel - fire department. And my understanding is Committeeman Gyorfy is going to recuse from this.
Very good. And again, this is a annual salary raise for members of our fire department, and the details of which can be found in the body of the ordinance on our municipal website. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Yes. Mr. Gyorfy,
Abstain.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. And a second reading and public hearing of ordinance 0621 will also occur on March 17th. Mr. Carlson, 0721, please.
Thank you. This is amending and repealing Chapter 268 entitled Fires and Fire Prevention and replacing in its entirety. Again, my understanding is that Committeeman Gyorfy will abstain on this.
Very good. And I'll ask Mr. Quinn to give us the public the background on this.
Yes, sir. This is with the Fire Prevention Bureau of the Fire Department. It is basically taking the non-life hazard registration fees, inspection fees, and creating a annual registration for those properties. We also looked at the ordinance in its entirety to clean up some language to properly identify the fire official, deputy fire officials, and the role of the fire chief and the career firefighters that are our inspectors.
Very good. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
You, Mr. Gyorfy,
Abstain.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes. A second reading of ordinance 0721 will also occur at our March 17 meeting. Next up, we have resolutions 4121 through 5421. Is that correct, Mr. Carlson?
You might want to omit, Mayor, 41-21, which authorized the closed meeting, which was canceled for tonight.
Yes, we did cancel the closed meeting. That did not occur. So yes.
There's two additional ordinances, resolutions.
Can you read them into the record, or they're not on my copy here?
Turn
They should be. Should be up to 56.
Yes, goes to the next page, yes.
Next page, you have to turn the page.
Yes. Very good. There is a next page. Yes, through 56. I have them all here. My apologies.
Okay.
Is anybody recusing themselves from any of these ordinances, resolutions, sorry? Very good.
I will offer all the resolutions, Mr. Mayor, 4221 through 5621.
Second.
Very good.
Mayor, before we vote, could I ask for a couple of comments from Mr. Quinn?
Yes, please
by
go
way of
ahead.
explanation?
Yes, please go ahead.
I would like to ask Mr. Quinn to offer a little further explanation of the 4221, the one dealing that relates to Cornine Field.
Yes, ma'am. That is an annual requirement that we have with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. When we got their final approval to do Cornine Field, we had to put in, as you may recall, a passive vent system for the methane gas that had been down below. As part of that approval, we have to do annual testing for that methane gas 4 times a year. We have retained Suburban Engineering to do that. They've been done it for the past several years. It's the same price as last year, and we're hopeful that as we move forward, we'll be able to make application to NJDEP to reduce that testing requirement.
Thank you. And
You're
the other resolution I had a question to ask if you would explain a little bit is the next one, 4321, municipal services related to Columbia Park Homeowners Association.
Yes, ma'am. This is often referred to as the Kelly Bill. It goes back to about 1994, which requires municipalities to reimburse townhome communities for certain services or perform those services, such as garbage collection, leaf collection, snow removal, and street lighting. So we have agreements with each of our townhome communities. This is the latest one that is now homeowners ownership, Columbia Park, former Honeywell site developed by Hovnanian. It's our standard agreement with them. When it comes to, we provide all the services with the exception of the snow plowing and the street lights. So what we need to do, or what we do every year, is we take all of our costs for snow removal. We come up with a per mile cost, and then they are reimbursed for the number of miles, which is a little over a mile for their complex for that service. And the same as with streetlights, we look at what is the average in Morris Township for streetlights on a public roadway. It's approximately every 400 feet. So again, we take that mileage, we divide that, and we come up with the number of streetlights to reimburse them for. So it's a standard requirement that we're required to do, and we do for all of our townhome communities because they also pay taxes that go towards those municipal services.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does that cover it?
Yes, Mayor, before we vote, I just want, while I have this opportunity, I just want to mention someone sent me a text and requested to make sure that the raise hand feature is active because they're not seeing it at their end. So if Mr. Daly could check that.
Yeah, that hand has to be, they have control over that on their Zoom. So I will check that, but that's something they have.
Is it just, yeah, just make sure it's turned on.
Right.
So that people can raise their hands. Very good. Thank you, Committeewoman Wilson. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call.
Thank you. Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes,
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes,
Thank you.
very good. Next on the agenda is the general business correspondence. Will somebody please move that as circulated?
So moved.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Now we've come to the, very quickly in the meeting, the portion where we have standing committee reports and commentary by the Township Committee. I like to break up the standing committee commentary and the general committee commentary. So please, let's just start with our standing committees. And I will let Mr. Mancuso kick it off.
Thank you, sir. My report it includes my committees and my general comments. We've been working intensively on the budget, the corona, the pension costs, state subsidy, the pools, revenues, parking lot, etc., is going to make for a very, very formidable task this year on our budget. There'll be more to come on that as we go down the road. I'd like to thank the department heads for their cooperation during this period of time. And on my other committee that I've been working on, I leave this to Mr. Ravitz to speak about Parks and Recreation. Okay.
Very good. Thank you. So Mr. Ravitz.
All righty. As long as, thank you for that segue, Peter. As long as we're talking about Parks and Rec, lots of great things that are going on. Most indoor recreation programming is suspended due to the Morris School District building closures, but virtual programs are unaffected. On the trail, family scavenger hunt is set for 3/1, March 1st. There's lots of maintenance and renovations underway at various pools and recreation sites. And some of that is what was in the resolutions that we just passed. Of interest also, the Community Tree Recovery Program will distribute 1,000 seedlings to township residents beginning on May 1st. And you can see the Parks and Rec webpage for more details about this and other things that are going on. As far as the swim pools are concerned, there are lots of renovations and projects that were badly needed that are underway at both Streeter and Ginty pools. And we await the 2021 public bathing protocols for the summer from the state. So that's Parks and Recreation and the swimming pool. And on another note, on communications that I sit on with Mark Gyorfy, we're pleased to announce the return of office hours. Hooray. Dates can be found on the Township website under the Township Committee. They're going to be on the second Wednesday of every month from 5:30 until 6:30 and beginning on March 10th. And that'll be covered initially by Mark Gyorfy and Peter Mancuso. And the format is going to be as follows. From 5 to 5:30, there will be phone appointments only with myself, not myself, with the two committee representatives. And then from 5:30 till 6 p.m. will be an open forum This way, anybody who doesn't need a private conversation and wishes to say something good, bad, or indifferent can voice their opinion in a public forum, and that's 5:30 to 6 via Zoom. That's my talk on the committees for tonight.
Very good. Committeewoman Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a couple of things I wanted to mention about the Energy, Environment, Sustainability Standing Committee. We have several new members on the Environmental Commission, lots of new ideas, lots of new projects. It's very exciting. I just want to mention a couple of things that are coming up here tonight. One is that we will very soon have a new stormwater management ordinance. This is because the NJDEP has issued new stormwater rules that apply statewide, and they go into effect in March. So as a result, every town in New Jersey, including ours, is required to revise our stormwater management ordinances to make them in compliance with the new rules. The biggest change in the rules is there's an addition of new green infrastructure requirements. Green infrastructure refers to methods of managing stormwater runoff that more closely resemble nature, like treating runoff by filtering it through soil and vegetation. And the most common example is a rain garden. So there's a lot of other details that are included as well. The sample ordinances that I've seen are very long, many pages long. Our engineering department is working on this, and the plan is to introduce our ordinance at the special meeting on February 24th, and then take the final vote on that ordinance at our March 17th Township Committee meeting. The second point I wanted to make about the EES Standing Committee is there's a subgroup that's working on energy aggregation, which is a program that allows a municipality to pool the energy usage of all its residents to lower the rate and possibly increase the amount of renewable energy that's in the mix. You may recall that we had a presentation by Dan Faulkner, I believe it was last November. This was kind of a high-level overview of what energy aggregation is and how it works. And this subcommittee is looking at holding a public meeting at the end of April, either the 28th or 29th. And this would be more of a sort of a nuts and bolts information session on how it would work if we were to ever do it. We're just really in the stage of gathering information and educating people. Any possible decision would be a long way off. But I did want to highlight that another public meeting will be coming, and all of us on the Township Committee are invited, and we'll hopefully be there, and Mr. Quinn as well. Finally, on the Environment Standing Committee, I wanted to highlight they've got so many ideas and so many projects. They're really chomping at the bit to share information with the public. So they're working on building the website, and you're going to hear me frequently encouraging people to sign up for their emails. So you can find the Environmental Commission's website on the Township website. And from the home page, you would click Government and then Environmental Commission, and their website is housed in there. And there's a link in there to sign up for their emails. And I would encourage everybody to do that. And then I do have a couple of points about the fire department as well. It's my other standing committee. I want to thank all the volunteers who helped at the food drive that was held at Mount Kimball Firehouse on February 6th, and to all the volunteers who helped with the roses sale at Hillside Firehouse on February 12th, 13th, and 14th. Both events are really great causes, and I just want to thank everyone who volunteered and who participated by making donations. I also wanted to mention that last week, our fire department submitted a grant that is federally funded by FEMA. It is an assistance called Assistance to Firefighters Grant. The grant was a funding request for a fire apparatus vehicle, a fire truck that's called a Quint. And completing this grant was a lot of work. I just want to say a special thanks to Chief Nunn and to Administrator Tim Quinn for doing all the work that went into this. And a special thanks also to Deputy Mayor Gyorfy for his leadership in pushing this application forward. And we all have our fingers crossed that it'll be successful. That'll be wonderful. And I did want to, lastly, I wanted to add a couple of words about the ordinance, the fire prevention ordinance that we introduced tonight. That ordinance replaces section 268 in our township code, which deals with fire prevention. I don't think it's well known by the public how much time and effort our fire department puts into preventing fires from occurring in the first place, which is what inspections are all about. And also, I don't think people are aware of how much is involved with following up on inspection results to make sure that any violations are actually corrected. So the revision that we passed, we introduced tonight, it introduces changes, it updates some things as Mr. Quinn referenced. And I just want to say kudos to our department for all the prevention work that it's always done and continues to do, and for all the time and effort that went into writing this update of the prevention procedures. So that is it for me on standing committee reports. Thank you.
Thank you for all that great information. Committeeman or Deputy Mayor Gyorfy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start off with the Communications and IT Standing Committee that I chair with Committeeman Ravitz. Bud gave a high-level overview of what our virtual office hours will look like. Thank you, Bud, for taking the lead on that and getting that all set up for us to start. I'm looking forward to having those again in March. It's something that we discontinued due to the pandemic, and I'm excited to say we're getting to somewhat back to normal by having these office hours again, although they'll be virtual. So I asked members of the public who are interested, please sign up when the information is sent out. Mr. Ravitz and I also, during our meeting on the standing committee, we talked about proposing or starting to think through a summer fall newsletter like we've done in the past few years. While that is many months away, it does take a lot of time and effort to get that prepared for the mail. So we will be discussing that over the next several months. And I just wanted to thank our head of IT, Mr. Mark Daly, for working on the microphones here in Town Hall. I think they sound better this month. So please continue to provide feedback for those who are listening, whether or not these are, if our issues here have improved. For the Legislation and Grants Standing Committee, I wanted to thank Committeewoman Wilson for taking the lead on tonight's eloquent proclamation recognizing Black History Month. Thank you, Cathy, for taking the lead on that and putting all that work in over the past few weeks. And I wanted to applaud those who were recognized tonight and who spoke, Reverend Rogers, Dr. and Mr. Hollowell, Dr. Jameson, Mr. Sims, and Mr. Lee. Thank you all so much for all of your work that you've done on behalf of our community over the years. And as Committeewoman Wilson stated, I'm pleased to see that the fire department submitted its application for an AFG grant through FEMA. I sorted through many of those and wrote many letters of recommendation for those when I was a staffer on Capitol Hill, and I'm just ecstatic that our town submitted one, and definitely have my fingers crossed for a success in that. And I know we'll be working with our congressional delegation to work on letters of support for that, and we'll have our fingers crossed because that piece of equipment would be very well utilized here in Morris Township. For transportation and circulation, as chair of the Transportation Advisory Committee, my report for this month is one that we did pass the ordinance tonight to increase our membership from 9 to 11 members. And like Mayor Grayzel said, we have a lot of work that we're doing, and we need more sets of hands to help us get through all the work. This month, TAC continued its work reviewing the results of our resident survey. We started listing out our short and long-term proposals for improvements to traffic, pedestrian, and bicycle circulation in the township. I continue to be impressed with how hard our volunteers on this committee are working. And they, over the past several months, they've been studying data, particularly the input from our residents, whether it was just commentary or just their multiple choice answers. We're reporting on their findings, and we're going to be making recommendations to the Township Committee soon. So I'm looking forward to presenting those and having one of our members present the results of the whole survey in the spring. In addition to putting together a strategic list of short and long-term improvements to recommend to the Township Committee, TAC will also be providing an overview of some of the other work that they're doing. Specifically, we have an ad hoc group looking at Old Glen, which we've been talking about for many months. We should be having a recommendation there soon. TAC has an ad hoc group who's working with our professionals to come up with proposals on ways to improve safety there. And additionally, the driving subcommittee will be proposing a traffic calming policy for TAC to recommend to the Township Committee. So we're doing our work. It takes time, but I'm optimistic and excited for what is to come from TAC in the next few months. Are we sticking with standing committee reports, or are we also doing general public comment?
Just standing committee right now.
Okay, that's all for me. Thanks.
Very good. Lots of good information tonight. Thank you. So I'd sit on the standing committees of finance with Mr. Mancuso and fire with Committeewoman Wilson, and they both covered those very well. I will echo the words of Mr. Mancuso. Thank you for all our department heads, our CFO, Francine DeAngelis, and our business administrator, Mr. Quinn, for all the hard work they've been done so far to put together the budget. We're going to have a presentation in the coming week, I believe, as to where we stand, and then the decision making has to start. So I look forward to that next week. I have 3 other standing committee reports tonight. First, engineering. The bid packages for 2 projects went out today. The first is for the James Street sidewalk, the long-awaited James Street sidewalk. Bids are due back by March 10th so that we can award the contract at our March 17 Township Committee meeting. The second project is for reconstruction of Rayner Road. This project will include the installation of new curbing and drainage, as well as the paving of the full length of the road. So those 2 bid packages went out, and we look forward to those improvements in our municipality. As for shared services, I've mentioned numerous times over the past year about the task force I helped initiate to discuss ideas on sharing services with Morristown, Morris Plains, and Madison. Earlier this year, the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs approved our project proposal, and recently they have been working with us to put forward a formal grant application to get funding from the state of New Jersey to hire a consultant to come in and do a full-scale review of the DPW equipment across all of our towns, as well as the maintenance programs required to fix the equipment. The program was so interesting to our neighbors in Chatham Borough and Chatham Township that they asked to come on board, and now it went from a 4-town shared services proposal to a 6-town shared services proposal. So there's great interest in moving this forward. Morris Township is going to be the lead agency on this project, and we'll submit the grant by the end of this week on behalf of all 6 towns. And thank you to Mr. Quinn for doing the work on submitting the grant on behalf of all of those 6 towns. Department of Public Works. I wanted to both acknowledge and thank our DPW workers for the tremendous number of hours they've had to put in recently to manage the snow that has fallen on our streets. And there is yet more coming tomorrow. Not only do they plow the streets, but you may have noticed that the streets are also pre-treated prior to the snowstorm with a brine solution that helps get the snow off the asphalt when the plow comes through later. Thank you also to the members of the public who have written letters of thanks relating to the good work of the DPW that they did during the snow. We always appreciate hearing from the public, and the DPW does deserve these accolades. So thanks again to our road crews for your hard work, and thank you for what you're going to be doing over the next couple of days. So that closes out my 3 committee reports. And with that, we will now move to general commentary. Mr. Mancuso, do you have anything to add?
I do, just for a second or so, sir. Thank you. I have lived in this township for 54 years, and I have never seen and been as pleased with the phenomenal job that our Department of Public Works has done in cleaning the snow. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal. And they were very, very careful not to drive too many people's or too many people's driveways with snow as they went by. Very, very, very proud of them all. I'd like to thank also and give my congratulations to the members of the Martin Luther King Observance Committee, Mr. Hollowell, Mrs. Hollowell, Mrs. Jameson, and former Chief Sims. Very wonderful thing. We're very, very proud of it. And Cathy, I give you credit for the job you did. Today is the last meeting that we had that was done when we were in public. Next month will be the first meeting that we had virtually, and we've done it. It'll be a full year that we'll be doing it now. I just hope that as things progress and the COVID eases, that we have the opportunity, all of us, to be back together and to deal with things as we did. I would have one other thought, though. I went to the rose sale on Saturday, and I had to wait a good 20 minutes to get in. There were 8 or 10 people ahead of me. When I got there, there were about 15 behind. And the incredible thing was the smiles of relief as the men, as they were leaving, knowing they were off the hook for another year. I'll leave it with that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mancuso. Thank you for sharing that. Mr. Ravitz.
I love following Peter. It's, it's ending on a great high note. It's always a good segue. And I, of course, want to echo the words of, thanking Committeewoman, Cathy Wilson for those moving proclamation words. And I want to say good evening and thank you, thank you one and all for your participation in your local government. Rather than saying something that is probably very similar to what my esteemed colleagues here on the dais may comment, I'm going to talk about something different, but certainly important and topical. And we've all heard the word, all the words or the phrase cancel culture. So I'd like to kind of delve into that for a minute. Cancel culture is a basic tenet of capitalism. It's really all about the buying power and the tide of thought shifting. Those who were once the beneficiary of this culture are now on the receiving end. And suffice to say, no one likes to be on the receiving end of being canceled or marginalized. So when one group of people loses a privilege that they've held for so long, not even aware that such a privilege existed, it feels like oppression. If someone says something bigoted in a public space or forum, odds are that he or she is going to get a lesson in words have consequences. You may not get hired, you might lose your job, you may even get banned on social media. It didn't used to be that way. There was a time when those viewpoints were actually the majority. They're not anymore. It's just a numbers game. A minority of people who hold on to obsolete viewpoints are now feeling the same way that people they once canceled or marginalized feel. The same people who might have been involved in a boycott of a company with progressive ideas are now finding themselves on the receiving end of those boycotts. As the demographics of society has evolved, so too have the ideas moved on, and some people have refused to keep up. Who decides who gets canceled? Large companies and corporations do. Typically, large companies aren't in the business of politics. They exist to make money. They strive to appeal to the largest group of people possible. And most companies will side with the majority. And today, the majority of the people oppose bigotry, sexism, homophobia, and that kind of speech. There's been a pronounced shift in belief. On a final note regarding COVID-19, it's up to citizens to act responsibly until vaccines are more widespread. For the most part, I think New Jersey residents have taken COVID-19 very seriously. Governor Murphy is protecting and balancing the needs of communities and local economies. As vaccine availability becomes more widespread, as mask wearing is more common, as more people are hunkered down since the holidays, severe cases of COVID-19 are greatly diminishing. Over the last few weeks, the numbers of new cases and hospitalizations are falling across the nation, and that is a very positive trend, and we need to do our part to see that it continues. Sign up to get vaccinated. Get your second vaccination. Hopefully, when we get to 75, 80% of the population vaccinated, likely maybe by autumn, continue to wear the mask, social distance, and wash your hands. We can all see the light at the end of the tunnel, and let's get there together, alive and safe. And congratulations to the Martin Luther King Observance Committee for all the selfless, wonderful work you've done and are doing now and into the future. In the words of Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then you crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. We have more in common than divides us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ravitz. I agree that we all need to keep moving forward, whatever we do. Committeewoman Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to just note that at least at my end, the microphones on the dais are much better than usual. Really noticeable difference. I will say from, at least at my end, Mr. Daly's microphone is not as clear as the dais microphone. So just a little feedback on that.
And can you hear me well through the mask?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes. I wanted to note that I'm very glad we passed the TAC ordinance and expanded our membership by 2 people. TAC has an enormous scope of work, and I'm just really glad we're adding extra members. And I wanted to congratulate Chris Ruggieri on being appointed to one of those positions. We still have another position that we will be appointing in March, but the work that TAC is doing is really great. And I want to thank Deputy Mayor Gyorfy for his leadership on this committee as well. And thank you to Committeeman Ravitz for pulling together the office hours. That's, I'm glad to know we'll be back and doing that. And I like the format that you outlined. Moving on, a theme for me tonight is history. History is a significant month for Black history, which we talked about earlier this evening. And by the way, I was very grateful for the opportunity to do that proclamation. It was such an interesting sort of research exercise for me. I read all of the presidential proclamations on it and did a bunch of other sort of research as well. I'd like to thank and congratulate also the members of the Martin Luther King Observance Committee. Thank you so much for making that event possible. I look forward to it every year. The breakfast, the noonday service, they're both always so interesting and uplifting. And I'm just really glad that we have people in our community who work and make that happen. February is also a significant month for one of our most interesting local history organizations, the Washington Association. The Washington Association is all about preserving the legacy of George Washington and the story of the Revolutionary War that occurred right here in our own town. It's amazing to me how many of our residents are unfamiliar with this organization. So I've gotten in the habit now every February of putting a plug in for this wonderful local organization that's right here in our midst. A centerpiece of their activities for the year is they hold a luncheon every February on President's Day. February 22nd is Washington's birthday. I so look forward to this event every year. The highlight of the luncheon is a speaker who talks about some aspect of Revolutionary War history. There's always ongoing scholarship and research into the Revolutionary War. This year's speaker was the former governor, Tom Kean, who used to be a history teacher himself. And he gave an interesting presentation. Usually the luncheon is held at Rod's, and anybody from the public you can attend. This year, due to COVID, You can watch the event if you want to on YouTube. I encourage everybody to do that. I encourage you to mark your calendar now for attending next year's luncheon on President's Day, which hopefully will be in person. And consider signing up to be a member of this historic organization. It's a really great organization. Another history note I just wanted to highlight is the work of our Historic Preservation Commission. They've been pulling together photo albums of different historic neighborhoods in our towns. I want to give them a shout out for the fantastic work that they're doing. If you go on the Township website, and you can get to the Historic Preservation Commission's web portion of the website by clicking on government, and then you'll see Historic Preservation Commission. And every time I go to the website, there's more material on there that they've pulled together. So I encourage everybody to take a look at that, look especially at the photo albums and the other things that they've pulled together as well. I'm glad to know, I thank Mr. Grayzel for highlighting the progress we're making on the James Street sidewalk. The bids went out today. We do expect to be awarding a contract to one of the bidders at our March meeting. And we expect the work will begin sometime toward the end of April and continue into May. So these are our expectations, and we are on schedule as of now. And finally, I wanted to just to conclude by letting everyone know, in case you don't know already, on February 5th, Marie Finaro passed away very suddenly. It was very unexpected. Marie was the president of the League of Women Voters. She was beloved by everyone who knew her. She was well known by many of us for her work on the candidates forums that the League sponsored over every year. Her passing was just a complete shock to everyone, including me. And I ask that we all keep Marie and her family and friends in our thoughts and prayers. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Committeewoman Wilson. Thank you for mentioning Marie Fernaro. We'll all miss her. Deputy Mayor Gyorfy.
Thank you, Mayor. And yes, I'll also express my condolences to the Fornaro family, and it's also the League of Women Voters who, I got to meet her a few years ago ahead of my first debate for a Township committee, and she was wonderful to work with, and my thoughts are with them. For my public commentary tonight, I just wanted to thank my colleagues on the Township Committee for their support for the EV charging ordinance that we passed tonight. This ordinance will provide funding for charging stations, as the mayor said, at Cornine Complex, as well as the municipal complex here on Woodland Avenue. And I see it as an important piece of our environmental initiatives here. This is very much complements our EV parking ordinance that we passed last year, which requires electric vehicle charging for new commercial parking, and in addition to some residential. I firmly believe we cannot sit idly by to wait for our infrastructure to catch up with the demands of tomorrow. It is our role to see those demands of the future now and ensure that our community is prepared for them. And I can't wait until we make our first purchase of an electric vehicle for our municipal fleet, hopefully soon. It's just, the trends are changing. Recently, General Motors announced that they'll be having an all-electric fleet of cars for purchase down the road. Other vehicle manufacturers are doing the same. And we just have to be prepared for that, because our infrastructure, the demands of our infrastructure are going to change. And it is important for us to be ahead of the curve rather than behind the curve in that regard. I'd like to echo the mayor's thanks to our DPW workers who have been working around the clock over the past few weeks during these winter storms. I appreciate them, and especially their families too, who they've been away from as they work super long hours, nights, weekends. Thank you to all those who've been working throughout the clock for us to keep our streets clear and our residents safe. I normally don't go in commenting about the fire department. I do like to keep a separation, but I did want to thank our firefighters who were responded last Friday to a fire in the Convent Station area of town. They had a difficult fire Friday morning. A lot of during a weekday as a volunteer, I know it's hard for a lot of volunteers to get out to the fires because of work. So they were low on manpower, but from what I've heard, they did a tremendous job. Several of the members went in several times. They received a lot of aid through mutual aid, but they did a fantastic job. So I just wanted to thank our firefighters who responded last Friday. And just note and remind folks at home to always be diligent with, fire safety at your house. Always make sure you have a fire extinguisher handy. Make sure, there aren't any fire hazards in your home, because a lot of it is preventable. And I think some of the recent fires we had were electrical in nature. So always make sure, you're practicing good standards, especially as it relates to electricity in your home. Things are updated, things like that. So I wanted to thank the fire department. And then lastly, to echo, I'm not sure how many members already talked about the rose sale, but OEM and FMBA did a great rose sale this year. Patty Sims, Greg Sims, the FMBA did a tremendous job as always. And thank you to the Ladies Auxiliary, members of Hillside Host Company, and the members of Mount Kemble Fire Company for their food drive recently too, which was very easy to take part in. And I think they had a great setup down at Station 1 on Mount Kemble. With that, I will return it to you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. And I'll just add one more thing about the rose sale. Thank you to all the members of the public who actually participated and bought their roses from the firehouse, because that supports our community. The money that you spent there directly supports our OEM and FMBA groups. And so you're basically investing that back into the community. So thank you to everybody who actually bought their roses there. And hopefully the rose sale will continue to grow from year to year. My comments for today are that I saw on Facebook, and I had heard the news, but I wasn't sure when it was going to be publicly announced, but I saw that the police department posted on Facebook, and you can follow our police department as well as our town on Facebook. They posted that Chief DeCarlo has named Patrolman Robert Rubinicki as the 2020 Morris Township Police Officer of the Year. And Chief DeCarlo also recognized Sergeant Crowell with outstanding performance as a detective in 2020. So I wanted to congratulate these two fine officers for their good work on the job. And I look forward to the actual ceremonies, which I believe are going to take place when things warm up and we can all meet outdoors, because we can't have an indoor ceremony at the moment. So hopefully in April, May, we'll have a nice police ceremony and honor these two officers for their good work. On January 31st, at approximately 2 a.m., Patrolwoman Catherine Ridley stopped a motor vehicle for speeding. The vehicle was being driven by an 18-year-old from another town, and this Morris Township police officer, who is assigned to combat rising car thefts in our town, stopped the speeding car on Columbia Road. A 15-year-old passenger was charged with possession of a .22 caliber revolver and possession of marijuana with intent to distribute. I wanted to thank Officer Ridley, not only for her good work, but also for her bravery in pulling over a car at 2 o'clock in the morning on what was likely an empty stretch of road. It goes to show what our police officers have to do on a daily basis. And it's yet another example of the great work our police force does to protect our community. So thank you to all of our officers for their good work and continuing good work. Last week, the CDC announced that a new government study has found that wearing 2 masks are better than 1 in slowing the coronavirus spread. Though health officials, I must say, have stopped short of recommending that everyone double up on their masks at the moment. But the researchers found that wearing 1 mask or a surgical mask or a cloth mask blocked around 40% of the particles coming toward the head that they were breathing in. But when a cloth mask was worn on top of the surgical mask, about 80% of the virus was blocked. So I would like to ask our residents to please consider wearing 2 masks if you can when you're out in public. Everybody else covered the other things I was going to say tonight, so I will just keep it at that and conclude my personal remarks. With that, next on the agenda, we have our second round of public comments and inquiry? And Mr. Daly, do you see anybody with their hand raised? If anybody's interested in speaking, please raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, hit *9. We do have one person. Who is that? Marilyn? Marilyn, if you unmute yourself, you can, sorry, Marlene. Marlene.
Yes, Marlene Member here, 63 Independence Way. I just wanted to thank Mayor Grayzel for his email to the Liberty Greens community in regards to the establishment of the quiet zone at Con Road, and that the email was shared with the residents on February the 8th. Thank you very much.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene, for reminding me of something I left out of my own personal commentary. So just for the edification of the public, we have been working for years to get a quiet zone in place at the Conroe Crossing, which is the old entrance, the old back entrance to the Honeywell property, which still exists there. The horns, the train had to blow their horns every time they passed, even though the gates might have been closed at the end of the workday as they used to. Because there's a crossing, the trains blew their horns day and night. And we now have an improved crossing there with improved gates and improved markings on the roadway, which has allowed us to apply to the Federal Railroad Association or Federal Railroad Administration to create a quiet zone, which has now been granted, and NJDOT is following the rules of not blowing their horns. And we now have a little bit more quiet here in Convent Station. The trains still have to blow their horns when they approach the actual train station, but at least they're not blowing their horns twice for when they approach the train station, as well as Con Road. So there's a little bit more quiet in the area, and I can only imagine the relief that residents are feeling there because those train horns are pretty darn loud when I hear them passing by. So thank you, Marlene, for remembering that and recognizing that, and I hope everybody's enjoying the quiet. Mr. Daly, anybody else online?
Mr. Watson.
Is that Pamela Watson?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Pamela Watson, and I reside at 2 Corey Road, Unit D. And I just wanted to comment on two things. I wanted to thank the Township Committee for acknowledging the Martin Luther King Observance Committee. Thanks to Reverend Rogers and Deacon and Deaconess Minister Hollowell and Deacon Lee for their contribution. And I also wanted to give a shout out to the Department of Public Works. And Mayor Grayzel, I thank you so very much. Last week here at the Condo Association, each owner has a month that they are responsible for. And I'm responsible for February. Then we had that terrible snowstorm. I had a COVID scare. My daughter went in for back surgery. And the night I was supposed to put the cans out on the street, it was overlooked. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my first time. And I didn't put it out there, but DPW came out there, and the gentleman that worked on that day actually got out of the truck, went behind the fence, pulled out our recyclable cans, put it in a position where he could manually have the handle come down and pick it up. And I just said to the president of the association that I just wanted at the next township meeting to give the Department of Public Works a shout out, because it showed that this employee actually enjoyed his work in doing the right thing, and that the president of the association was going to reach out to the Department of Public Works to show our gratitude for that. And I just wanted to give a shout out to that.
Wow, thank you very much for sharing that story. Can you tell me what day of the week that was? What week that was? It this past week?
No, it was last. It was, yeah, last week. Yeah, the first Tuesday, because I had to put it out Monday night. We have to put the cans out on the street, and they pick it up on Tuesday, somewhere between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning. And my daughter went in for back surgery on the 8th. So the 9th is when they were supposed to, and then that late afternoon, I got a COVID scare, and everything was just trying to get an appointment to get tested, and we didn't get a chance to get the cans out. So it was last.
Very good. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And Mr. Quinn, if you could look up who was driving that truck on February 9th, they should get some special recognition for going the extra mile. I know our DPW does these kinds of things all the time. Sometimes we hear about them, sometimes we don't, but that's a really special story. So thank you for that. And thank you for letting us know so we can pass the praise along.
Thank you.
Mr. Daly, anybody else? Mr. Lee Goldberg. Go ahead, Mr. Goldberg. We don't hear you yet.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, we hear you now.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for all of the events of this evening, putting on this meeting. Yes,
Mr. Goldberg, can you first give us your street address, please?
Sure. Lee Goldberg, 10 Arrowhead Road.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opening recognitions this evening and the entire meeting. Yes, the microphones are 100% much improved, so thank you for that as well. Everyone's coming through loud and clear, which is phenomenal. And wanted to just bring an update to this committee regarding some development that's happening over on this side of town with the Route 24 interchange. A number of residents, we did receive an email from Ora Dunn's office saying that the concept phase was wrapping up for that interchange development coming off of 24 onto Park, and that it was next going to be sent to Morris County to sort of create the plans. I guess my ask for this committee is anything you can do to engage with the county to learn about the appetite for funding of the project, or when the next portion for the public to get involved might be, and to keep that communication and dialogue open with us, I think would be greatly appreciated. And that's really my only comment and ask this evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Quinn, do you know, does that project have to go to the Morris County Planning Board? We can't hear you. Tim, you have to unmute yourself.
There you go. Back,
there we
go. Yes, sir. It will have to. There's still quite a bit of work to do. The state was doing the design work, and then it comes back to the county to pick it up and run from there. So, and also get the appropriate funding for it.
Yeah. So I would assume it would have to go to the county planning board, and there's many steps along the way before anything actually happens. And finding the money will be a big hurdle.
That's when we go to the county planning board, is once the funding is in place and they're ready to award a contract.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Daly, anybody else?
Miss Linden.
Rachel Linden?
Yes, Rachel Linden, 35 Buckley Hill Road.
Good evening.
Township. Thank you. Yes, it is a good evening, isn't it? Yeah, and I was just going to say too, the sound is much better, and it's so like, look, I have kids running around and other noises in the house and animals. It's nice to have a clear microphone to hear. It just makes it all that much more participatory from the public, at least on my end. So thank you for that improvement.
Very good. Well, I apologize for all the months that you couldn't hear us very well.
Yeah, it just makes it so much easier. My request is actually to, at some point, get on the agenda to give a short presentation to the Township Committee on the benefits of organic land care standards in our parks. And it would take maybe 15 minutes, 15, maybe 5 extra minutes for a Q&A. And I think that the Township Committee might be very interested in what I'm going to say as it relates to climate change mitigation, stormwater management, and the perks for this progressive type of policy and or program to be put into place in our township because of grant programs that are happening. And so I wanted to see if there was a time in the near future that I might be able to present to the committee.
Okay, so what I would suggest is since this has to do with our parks, I'm going to ask the chair of our Parks and Recreation Standing Committee, Mr. Ravitz, to reach out to you to get some more information on that. And probably the first step is to make a presentation to the Parks and Recreation Standing Committee as a first step, and then they bring their recommendations to the entire Township Committee. But I think that that would be a great idea for you to present to that group as a first step. So, Mr. Ravitz, I have some of your information, so I'll pass it on to Mr. Ravitz so he can reach out to you.
And
Perfect.
Rachel, you're also on the EC committee, as I recall, correct?
No, I was on the EC committee and rotated off. I'm not currently there. I am going to be presenting to them next month to the Environmental Commission, but have not presented to the Parks Department yet or to the Parks Committee.
Okay, you can just send me your contact info to my township email address.
Yeah, I'll connect the two of you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for joining us tonight. Mr. Daly, anybody else?
I would make a motion, Mr. Mayor, that we conclude the public participation portion of the meeting.
Seconded.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next on the agenda is consideration of monthly reports. The following reports for the month of January 2021 are on file in the office of the Township Clerk and Township Administrator. Those reports being Tax Collector, Finance, Police, Joint Court, Joint Library, and Fire. Will somebody move those?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Lastly, we have claims for payment. The list of bills and vouchers this month total $12,984,201.52. I remind the public that we are the tax collector for your entire tax bill, even though Morris Township is only 25% of that. So we collect the school tax and the county tax and then disperse those monies, which is why that number seems a little bit high. We don't spend that much money ourselves. Will somebody move the claims for payment?
So moved.
Second.
Second, very good. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Gyorfy,
Yes.
Mr. Mancuso,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Grayzel.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I will remind the public that we are going to reconvene for the special meeting on February 24th, 2021 at 7 p.m. That meeting will be solely dedicated to the redevelopment plan for 340 Mount Campbell Avenue. And our next regular meeting of the Township Committee is March 17 at 7 p.m. Will that somebody move to close the meeting?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. We'll see everybody next week.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye now. Have a nice evening. Have a nice weekend.